The bridge of the Coalition command ship trembled as another explosion rocked the hull. Admiral Telvanna gripped her command chair, watching helplessly as red warning lights flashed across every screen. Through the viewport, she could see the burning remains of what had once been the proud Fifth Fleet, scattered across space like broken toys. "Ma'am, we've lost contact with the 7th Defense Wing," reported her communications officer, his voice barely steady. "The Vorthak are pushing through our last line." Telvanna closed her eyes for a moment. In just 3 weeks, the unstoppable Vorthak Empire had destroyed 12 star systems and wiped out nearly half the Coalition's military force. Their black ships moved like a plague across the galaxy, leaving nothing but death in their wake. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked quietly. 43 operational vessels, Admiral. Maybe 50 if we count the damaged ones. 43 ships against the Vorthak's endless armada. Telvanna had seen their intelligence reports. The Hive enemy had over 2,000 warships, including planet killers that could crack worlds in half. Every battle had been a massacre. Every retreat had cost them more lives. The tactical display showed the grim truth. Kepler Station, their last major stronghold, was surrounded. Civilian evacuation ships were still trying to escape, but the Vorthak, hunter groups were picking them off one by one. Families, children, elderly refugees who had already lost everything once before. All of them would be dead within hours. "Admiral," her science officer called out, "long-range sensors are detecting massive hyperspace signatures. The main Vorthak fleet is coming." Telvanna felt her heart sink. The main fleet meant the end, not just for her forces, but for every free civilization in this part of the galaxy. Once the Coalition fell, nothing could stop the Vorthak from consuming everything. "Send a message to all remaining ships," she ordered. "Full retreat to Rally Point Omega. Save who you can." "What about Kepler Station?" asked her first officer. Telvanna looked at the thousands of life signs still aboard the massive space station. Researchers, technicians, civilian refugees who had nowhere else to go. "We can't save them. Not against what's coming." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel. All frequencies, maximum power." The young officer's fingers danced over his console. "Channel open, Admiral." Telvanna took a deep breath. This would be the Coalition's final message to the galaxy, a warning to any civilization that might still be listening. "This is Admiral Telvanna of the Galactic Coalition Defense Force. To any free peoples receiving this transmission, know that we have fought with honor against the Vorthak Empire. Our forces are broken, our worlds are burning, but we die knowing we stood against tyranny. The Vorthak show no mercy to the innocent. They consume everything in their path. Beware their coming. This is our final warning to the galaxy." Static filled the bridge for long moments. Telvanna was about to order the channel closed when an unexpected voice crackled through the speakers. "Coalition Command, this is Captain Kim Day of the USS Blackstar. We have received your distress signal and are changing course to your coordinates." Every head on the bridge turned toward the communications station. The voice was clear, calm, and speaking perfect galactic standard, but the accent was unlike anything they had heard before. "Captain Kim," Telvanna replied carefully, "this is Admiral Telvanna. I must warn you, we are facing overwhelming enemy forces. This is not a battle you can win." "Understood, Admiral. We're still coming." Telvanna's science officer was frantically working at his console. "Ma'am, I'm trying to identify this Blackstar vessel, but there's no record of it in our databases. No record of humans either." "Captain Kim," Telvanna said into the microphone, "forgive me, but we have no knowledge of your species or your ship. Are you part of some unknown fleet?" There was a pause before the human answered. "No, Admiral, we're just one ship, but sometimes one ship is enough." Telvanna felt a chill. Either these humans were incredibly brave or completely insane. "Captain, you don't understand. The Vorthak have destroyed entire star systems. They have weapons that can crack planets. One ship cannot stand against their armada." "We'll see about that," came the simple reply. On the tactical display, a new contact appeared at the edge of sensor range. The Blackstar was smaller than most. Coalition cruisers, built from simple metals and composites that looked primitive compared to their advanced alloys. Yet something about its energy readings made Telvanna's science officer frown in confusion. "Captain Kim," she tried one more time, "I admire your courage, but I cannot ask you to sacrifice yourself for strangers. This fight is already lost. Admiral, the human voice replied with quiet strength, we've been watching your war from a distance. We've seen what the Vorthak do to peaceful worlds. We've seen how they treat prisoners. We've seen enough. The Blackstar was moving fast now, cutting through space toward their position. Telvanna could see on her screens that Vorthak scouts were already detecting the approaching vessel. Besides, Captain Kim added, and Telvanna could almost hear him, smile, you're not strangers anymore. The USS Blackstar dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light that lit up the dark battlefield. Admiral Telvanna watched her screens in amazement as the human ship appeared exactly where it needed, to be cast between the fleeing coalition survivors and the hunting Vorthak destroyers. Impossible, whispered her science officer. No one can navigate hyperspace with that kind of precision. But the humans had done it. The Blackstar was already moving, its tractor beams reaching out to grab damaged coalition ships and pull them to safety. Telvanna saw the rescue of the medical frigate Mercy's Hope, its engines dead and hull cracked open. The human ship caught it, just as Vorthak plasma cannons were locking on target. Coalition vessels, this is Captain Kim Day. The human voice came through clearly despite the battle noise. Move to positions behind our ship. We'll handle the hunters. 3 Vorthak destroyers broke off from chasing refugees and turned toward the Blackstar like angry wasps. They were each twice the size of the human vessel, their hulls covered in weapon ports that glowed with deadly energy. Unknown ship, snarled Commander Vextar from the lead destroyer. You will surrender immediately, or be destroyed. The Vorthak Empire shows no mercy to those who interfere with our operations. Telvanna held her breath. She had seen what Vorthak destroyers could do. Their plasma cannons could melt through coalition shields in seconds. Their missiles moved faster than most ships could dodge. The Blackstar looked so small and fragile compared to them. Captain Kim's reply was calm and steady. Vorthak vessels, you are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. These people are under our protection now. Vexitar's laughter filled the communication channels. Pathetic mammals. Your primitive bucket of metal cannot stand against the might of the Vorthak Empire. Prepare to die. The 3 destroyers opened fire at once. Dozens of plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the Blackstar like falling stars. Telvanna closed her eyes, expecting to see the human ship torn apart. But when she looked again, the Blackstar was still there. Point defense lasers had created a web of light around the ship, intercepting every missile with impossible accuracy. Energy shields that shouldn't have existed on such a small vessel absorbed the plasma fire without even flickering. What kind of technology is this? Her weapons officer gasped. The Blackstar's response was swift and terrible. Railguns mounted along its hull fired tungsten rounds at speeds that made space itself scream. The projectiles punched through Vorthak shields as if they were made of paper, tearing massive holes in the destroyer hulls. Commander Vextar's ship staggered as its main engine exploded. Impossible! Our shields are impenetrable. Not to us, Captain Kim replied simply. The battle was over in minutes. 2 Vorthak destroyers drifted helplessly with their engines destroyed. The 3rd tried to run, but found its hyperdrive sabotaged by some kind of electromagnetic pulse from the human ship. Telvanna stared at her tactical display in disbelief. The hunters that had been terrorizing coalition fleets for weeks had been defeated by a single unknown vessel. It didn't seem real. Admiral, her communications officer said quietly, Captain Kim is requesting a direct channel. Put him through. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the Blackstar. Telvanna had expected to see barbarian warriors or perhaps some kind of advanced robots. Instead, she saw humans that looked remarkably like several species she knew, with dark hair and thoughtful eyes. Captain Kim Day sat in a simple command chair wearing a plain blue uniform. Admiral Telvanna, he said with a slight bow of his head, I'm sorry we couldn't arrive sooner. Telvanna found her voice after a moment. Captain Kim, how did you do that? Our best ships couldn't stand against those destroyers. Different approach, different results, Kim replied. We've been studying Vorthak tactics for some time. They rely on overwhelming force and intimidation, but every system has weaknesses if you know how to look. Behind Captain Kim, Telvanna could see other humans working at their stations. They moved with quiet efficiency, no panic or confusion despite having just fought their first battle against galactic technology. A young woman with short black hair was analyzing the disabled Vorthak ships. A man with gentle eyes was coordinating the rescue of coalition survivors. "Captain," Telvanna said carefully, "we know nothing about your people. Where do you come from? Why are you helping us?" Kim's expression grew serious. "We come from a world called Earth, far from here. We've been listening to galactic communications for many years, learning about the different species and cultures. Out here, when we heard about the Vorthak attacks," he paused, looking directly at Telvanna, "we couldn't just sit back and watch innocent people die. That's not who we are." "But you're risking everything," Telvanna protested. "The main Vorthak fleet has over 2,000 ships, even with your advanced technology." Captain Kim smiled slightly. "Admiral, you should know something about humans. We don't like bullies. And we really don't like bullies who hurt defenseless people." An alarm sounded on the Blackstar's bridge. The young woman at the sensor station turned to her captain. "Sir, massive hyperspace signatures detected. The main fleet is arriving ahead of schedule." Through the viewport, Telvanna could see the first flashes of light as hundreds of Vorthak warships began dropping out of hyperspace. The real battle was about to begin. The stars themselves seemed to dim as the Vorthak main fleet emerged from hyperspace. Ship after ship materialized in perfectly ordered formations, sleek destroyers, massive cruisers, and 3 enormous dreadnoughts that dwarfed everything else in the system. Admiral Telvanna counted 500 enemy vessels on her sensors, each one bristling with enough firepower to level a city. "My God," whispered her tactical officer, "it's their entire battle fleet." At the center of the formation hung the flagship Eternal Conquest, a kilometer-long monster of black metal and glowing weapon ports. On its bridge, Supreme Commander Grulthex studied the battlefield with cold satisfaction. The coalition remnants, huddled behind a single unknown vessel like frightened children. "What is that pathetic thing?" he asked his intelligence officer. "Unknown configuration, Supreme Commander. Our databases show no match for its design. The crew appears to be some primitive species calling themselves humans." Grulthex's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Humans? Never heard of them. They must be some backwater species that stumbled into our war by accident." He opened a communication channel to the entire system. "Attention, primitive vessel. I am Supreme Commander Grulthex of the Vorthak Empire. You have interfered with our rightful conquest. Surrender immediately, and we may allow your species to serve us as slaves." Captain Kim Day stood on the Blackstar's bridge, watching the massive enemy fleet spread across space like a dark plague. His crew worked quietly at their stations, showing no fear despite being outnumbered 500 to 1. Lieutenant Park Hana checked weapon systems, while Navigator Choi Min calculated attack vectors. Chief Engineer Lee Sang monitored the experimental quantum drive that made their tactics possible. "Captain," Communications Officer Han Sol reported, "Coalition ships are requesting orders. Admiral Telvanna wants to know if we should retreat." Kim looked at the tactical display, showing thousands of civilian ships still evacuating from Kepler Station. Families, children, elderly refugees who had already lost everything once. They needed more time. "Tell the Admiral to keep her ships back," Kim said calmly. "We'll handle this." He activated the general communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies so every ship in the system could hear. "Supreme Commander Grulthex, this is Captain Kim Day of the USS Blackstar. You have 10 seconds to withdraw your forces from this system and return to your own territory. This is your only warning." The silence that followed was broken by Grulthex's harsh laughter, echoing across space. "You dare threaten the might of the Vorthak Empire? One primitive ship against our glorious fleet. Your arrogance will be your destruction." Kim checked his chronometer. 10 seconds have passed. You made your choice. The Vorthak fleet opened fire as one. Thousands of plasma bolts and missiles filled space like a deadly rainbow, all converging on the tiny human ship. The combined firepower could have destroyed a small moon, but the Blackstar wasn't there anymore. Lee Sang's quantum displacement drive bent space and time around the ship, allowing it to appear instantly anywhere within a light-second radius. The Blackstar materialized behind the Vorthak formation, its railguns already firing. Tungsten rounds accelerated to 20% light speed, punched through the rear shields of a dozen cruisers before their crews even knew they were under attack. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as enemy ships lost power and atmosphere. "Impossible," Grulthek snarled. "How did they get behind us?" "Unknown, Supreme Commander. Their ship just disappeared and reappeared." The Blackstar vanished again, this time appearing above the enemy formation. Point defense lasers reached out like deadly fingers, intercepting missiles and destroying smaller fighters with surgical precision. Each shot was perfectly aimed, wasting no energy on misses. Park, Hana had studied Vorthak fleet tactics for months. They fought in rigid formations, relying on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers, but rigid formations had predictable patterns, and predictable patterns had exploitable weaknesses. "Captain, marking priority targets," she reported calmly. The Blackstar danced through space like a ghost, appearing and disappearing faster than the enemy could track. Each time it materialized, more Vorthak ships died. Command vessels lost their bridges to precise railgun strikes. Heavy cruisers found their weapon systems disabled by electromagnetic pulses. Fighter squadrons were swept away by point defense. Fire navigator Choi Min guided the ship through the system's asteroid field, using space rocks as both cover and weapons. The Blackstar's tractor beams hurled asteroids at enemy ships with devastating accuracy, turning natural debris into kinetic missiles. "This is madness," Commander Vextar shouted from his damaged destroyer. "How can one ship move like that?" Supreme Commander Grulthex watched his carefully ordered fleet dissolve into chaos. Ships collided with each other, trying to track the impossible human vessel. Captains screamed contradictory orders over communication channels. His perfect battle formation was falling apart. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," he commanded. "Ignore everything else." But the Blackstar was already 3 steps ahead. As the Vorthak fleet tried to converge on its last known position, the ship appeared directly in front of the flagship, Eternal Conquest. At point-blank range, its railguns spoke with the voice of thunder. The massive dreadnought's forward shields collapsed under the assault. Armor plating peeled away like paper. Secondary explosions raced along the hull as critical systems failed. Captain Kim's voice cut through the chaos on all frequencies. "Supreme Commander Grulthex, your flagship is disabled. Your fleet is scattered. Order your ships to withdraw, and no more of your people need to die." But Grulthex's pride was stronger than his wisdom. "Never! All ships, ramming speed, destroy that ship at any cost." The Blackstar's crew exchanged glances. They had hoped the enemy would see reason. "So be it," Captain Kim said quietly. "Park Hana weapons free. Show them what humans can really do." Supreme Commander Grulthex gripped his command throne as another explosion shook the Eternal Conquest. Through the smoke and sparks on his bridge, he watched his perfect fleet crumble before a single enemy ship. This was impossible. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 47 star systems using these same tactics. Overwhelming force had never failed before. "All remaining ships form attack formation Crimson Death," he snarled into his communicator. "Surround that human vessel and crush it." 200 surviving Vorthak ships moved to obey, creating a massive sphere around the Blackstar's last known position. Their combined firepower could vaporize an entire city in seconds. No ship could escape such a trap, but Captain Kim Day had never intended to escape. "Lee Sang, how's our power core holding up?" he asked calmly. "At 70% capacity, Captain," the chief engineer reported. "The quantum drive is running hot, but she'll hold together." "Good." Choi Min plot a course through their formation. "Maximum acceleration." Navigator Choi Min's fingers danced over her controls. "Course plotted, sir. But, Captain, they're expecting us to try running." Kim smiled slightly. "Who said anything about running?" The Blackstar suddenly materialized in the center of the Vorthak sphere, moving at full speed directly toward the largest group of enemy ships. Grulthex laughed with savage joy. "Foolish mammals. They're flying straight into our guns. All ships open fire." But Park Hana had been counting on this reaction. As hundreds of plasma bolts converged on their position, The tactical officer activated, a system the Vorthak had never seen before. The Blackstar's hull suddenly blazed with reflected energy as adaptive armor plating bounced the enemy fire back at its source. Vorthak ships found themselves hit by their own weapons. Shields overloaded and hulls cracked as reflected plasma bolts struck with deadly accuracy. The perfect trap became a shooting gallery with the hunters as targets. "Impossible!" Grulthek screamed. "No armor can reflect pure energy." "Ours can," Captain Kim replied over the open channel. "Human engineers are very creative when they need to be." The Blackstar didn't slow down. Instead, it accelerated toward a cluster of heavy cruisers that were trying to reform their battle line. Communications officer Han Sul had been monitoring enemy communications, learning their tactical codes and fleet positions. "Captain, I've cracked their command frequencies," Han Sul reported. "I can disrupt their coordination." "Do it." False orders began flooding Vorthak communication channels. Ships received conflicting commands to attack different targets. Formation leaders found their squadrons breaking apart as individual captains tried to follow contradictory instructions. The rigid Vorthak command structure, built on absolute obedience, became its own worst enemy. Meanwhile, the Blackstar demonstrated another human advantage. While the Vorthak fought as a fleet, the human crew fought as a team. Each officer anticipated what the others needed. Park Hana's targeting data flowed seamlessly to Choi Min's navigation system. Li Sang adjusted power distribution before anyone asked. Han Sul provided intelligence updates that kept everyone informed. "Enemy dreadnought closing on our starboard side," Park Hana announced. "I see it," Choi Min replied, already changing course. "Rerouting power to forward shields," Li Sang added automatically. Captain Kim watched this perfect coordination with quiet pride. The Vorthak saw his ship as a single target to destroy. They didn't understand that they were fighting 800. Humans who had trained together, trusted each other, and would die for each other. The second dreadnought, Void Crusher, moved to intercept the Blackstar with its massive bulk. Commander Zalmoth was confident that his ship's thick armor could withstand whatever weapons the humans possessed. "Ram them," he ordered his helmsman. "Our mass advantage will crush their hull." But the Blackstar had no intention of trading blows. As the dreadnought approached, Li Sang activated the quantum drive at maximum power. Instead of disappearing, the human ship seemed to become translucent, its matter existing in multiple dimensions at once. The Void Crusher passed harmlessly through the Blackstar like a ghost ship passing through fog. But as the dreadnought emerged on the other side, it found the human vessel solid again and positioned directly behind it. "Now," Captain Kim said quietly. The Blackstar's railguns fired at point-blank range into the dreadnought's engine section. The tungsten rounds, traveling at relativistic speeds, punched through armor that had been designed to stop conventional weapons. The Void Crusher's reactor containment failed in a cascade of explosions that lit up space like a newborn star. "Commander." Zalmoth's last transmission was filled with disbelief. How did they pass through solid matter?" "Quantum physics," Captain Kim replied. "Your species mastered energy weapons, but never learned to manipulate matter at the subatomic level." Supreme Commander Grulthek realized with growing horror that he was fighting an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of warfare. The humans used tactics that no computer could predict, technology that defied understanding, and a level of cooperation that his rigid hierarchy couldn't match. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance," he finally ordered. "We need time to analyze their capabilities." But Captain Kim wasn't finished. "Han Sol, patch me through to their flagship. Channel open, Captain. Supreme Commander Grulthek, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces from Coalition space immediately, or we'll be forced to end this permanently." Grulthek's reply came through gritted teeth. "This battle is not over, human." "No," Captain Kim agreed. "But it will be soon." The third dreadnought, Death's Shadow, moved slowly toward the Blackstar, with its weapon ports glowing like angry red eyes. Supreme Commander Grulthek had loaded his final gamble with every remaining ship in his fleet, over 300 vessels, in a tight formation designed to overwhelm even the mysterious human technology. "This time we will not underestimate them," he growled to his bridge crew. "All ships will fire simultaneously. No fancy maneuvers can save them from that much firepower. But Captain Kim Day had been watching the enemy regroup, studying their new formation through the Blackstar's sensors. The humans had one more surprise that the Vorthak couldn't possibly expect. "Hansol, open a channel to all Coalition survivors," Kim ordered. "Channel open, Captain." "Admiral Telvanna, this is Captain Kim. I need every damaged ship in your fleet. To do exactly what I tell you, can you trust me?" Admiral Telvanna looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They had watched this single human vessel tear apart the mighty Vorthak fleet like tissue paper. If Captain Kim had a plan, she would follow it. "We trust you, Captain. What do you need?" "Position your ships in the pattern I'm sending to your navigation computer. Don't worry about your weapons being offline. We're going to turn your ships into something else entirely." The surviving Coalition vessels moved into a strange formation around Kepler Station. Ships with broken engines and failed weapon systems took positions that seemed to make no tactical sense. Telvanna couldn't understand what the human captain was planning. Then Li Sang's voice came over the Blackstar's internal communication system. "Captain, the network is ready." "Network?" Park Hannah asked. Li Sang smiled. "Something we've been working on during the battle. Every damaged Coalition ship is now connected to our main computer through quantum entanglement fields. Their hulls have become part of a massive sensor array." Navigator Choi Min's eyes widened as she understood. "We can see everything. Every ship movement, every energy signature, every communication signal in the entire system." The Vorthak fleet began its final attack run. 300 ships moving in perfect formation, their combined firepower enough to crack a moon in half. But the humans could now predict every movement before it happened. "Grulthex is ordering his ships to fire in sequence," Hansol reported, listening to intercepted communications. "First wave in 5 seconds. The Blackstar vanished an instant before the plasma bolts reached its position. It reappeared behind the enemy formation and began a deadly dance through space. But this time was different. This time, the ship moved. With impossible precision, dodging attacks that hadn't even been fired yet. "How are they doing that?" Commander Vextar screamed from his bridge. Supreme Commander Grulthex watched in growing terror as his fleet fell apart around him. The human ship seemed to know what his captains were going to do before they did it themselves. Every tactical decision was anticipated. Every formation was countered before it could form. "Sir," his intelligence officer said in a shaking voice, "I think they're reading our communications in real time. Every order you give, they hear instantly." But it was more than that. The Coalition ships weren't just passive sensors anymore. Under Li Sang's guidance, they had become weapons. Disabled vessels suddenly fired their emergency flares in coordinated patterns, creating brilliant lights that blinded Vorthak targeting systems. Ships with dead engines used their life support systems to vent atmosphere, creating clouds of gas that hid the Blackstar's movements. The human vessel appeared directly, in front of the Death's shadow, so close that the Dreadnought's massive guns couldn't target it. Railgun rounds punched through the command bridge at point-blank range. Supreme Commander Grulthex felt his ship shudder as critical systems failed throughout the hull. "This ends now," Captain Kim's voice came through the dying communication system. The Blackstar's quantum drive flared with brilliant blue light. For a moment, it seemed like a dozen copies of the human ship surrounded the remaining Vorthak vessels. Each one was firing, each one was real, each one was impossible. When the light faded, the Vorthak fleet was finished. Ships drifted helplessly with their engines destroyed and their weapons offline. The Death's shadow hung dead in space. Its hull cracked open like a broken egg. Captain Kim opened a communication channel to the entire system. "This is Captain Kim Day of the USS Blackstar to all remaining Vorthak forces. Your fleet is defeated. Your commanders are captured or dead. You have one choice. Surrender now and return to your home systems, or be destroyed where you sit." The surviving Vorthak ships began powering down their weapons and raising white flags of surrender. They had learned what happened to those who continued to fight humans. But Captain Kim's next message sent shockwaves across the galaxy that would be felt for generations. "I want every species listening to this transmission to understand something important. The USS Blackstar is not humanity's most advanced warship. It's not our newest vessel. It's not even our most heavily armed. It's simply the first ship we sent to help our new friends. Admiral Telvanna felt her legs go weak. If this incredible vessel was just the beginning. The human defense fleet is already on its way, Captain Kim continued. 50 ships with crews trained specifically for this kind of warfare. The age of bullying innocent civilizations is over. The galaxy has new protectors now, and we don't like bullies. The message spread faster than light itself through quantum communication networks. On 1,000 worlds, species that had lived in fear of the Vorthak Empire began to hope again. The humans had come, and they were on the side of peace. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Song received Captain Kim's battle report with quiet satisfaction. "Send the message to all our ships," she ordered. "The galaxy knows we're here now. Time to make sure they know we're staying."